Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the two knights defense. So this is basically, as you would probably guess from the name, there's two knights, like one for white, one for black. That's developed. But here, black also has another knight. So black has two knights on the board. White has one knight. And so basically. This is very similar to Four Knights opening, but there's a few differences. So I'm going to talk more about these things later and the variations for this opening. So let's get started. Okay, so this is how the two knights defense goes. So white, he plays e4 first, and then e5 for black. And then after that, knight f3 for white, and then knight c6. And then after that, bishop c4. So normally in Four Knights opening, white would develop his other knight as well, but now he's just doing the bishop. And then black, he plays knight f6. So for black, it's kind of like the Four Knights opening. For white, it's kind of like a new opening, not the Four Knights opening. And so many of you might be thinking, okay, knight g5, that's a great move. Because then it's the fried liver and all that. And so that is a good move, but there's a few variations to this opening. So first, white, he could defend e4, because notice how e4 is in trouble. He could play for this knight g5 and attack the f7 pawn, but another variation would be defending the e4 pawn with a boring knight c3. And so, this is solid. It's not like that dangerous, and there's not a lot of risk. But the thing is, white, he cannot advance his c pawn from c2 to c3. And if he could move his c pawn c2 to c3, then he would have a bit more control over the center after playing pawn d4. And so for white, this is more like the regular Four Knights opening. So it doesn't really distinguish from the Two Knights opening either. And then afterwards, black could just play bishop c5, and it'd just be a very normal, even game. So there's no really winning side to this. So another variation from this position, after the third move of knight f6, white can defend e4 by d3. And after this, it kind of leads to a positional battle. And so white plays d3, and then he will try to play, on the next move, he would try to play c3 after moving d3, and try to build a big center. So d3, and then black will probably try to continue normal development, because it's pretty easy to develop in this position. The center is not that closed and all that, but it's not very, very open where black is in danger, so it's probably a bit favorable for black. And so it's a pretty decent game right now. And the third variation. So white, he could play a very interesting move with this third variation. So he could just move d4, immediately starting a a central war. Instead of defending on e4, just attack the center. Don't defend. And so this is interesting move. It's like Stockfish might say like it's not. I mean, it probably might not be the best move, but it's like an interesting or surprising move. So Black might go with e takes d4, accepting this pawn. And then White might castle, because since Black has a pawn that's pretty close to like the White territory, White might want to get his king into safety. Or White could have played like e5. That would have been an interesting move as well. So after castling, bishop c5 is another possible move to defend that extra pawn that White has, and then e5. And so this kind of attacks the knight. So notice how like White, he has a pretty overextended pawn here, and that can be either good or bad for White. It could be good for White because it kind of puts Black in a bit more pressure, but also bad because it's overextended. So White might have a bit trouble to try to defend. So e5 and then d5. All right. So I know you guys probably thinking, okay, you can do en passant, right? Well, I mean, you could, but it's not. You don't really gain any advantage. So you might want to go e takes f6, right? And then d takes c4. And so this is it's very tactical. And so Black, he has a lot of queenside space. White, it doesn't have a lot of queenside space. Black has a lot of pieces developed. White only has a knight developed and a king castled. While Black, he has two minor pieces developed and two pawns on c4 and d4, which could put a lot of pressure on White because it's controlling half of the third rank. So it's gonna be pretty annoying for White because it's gonna be hard to develop this knight, and it's just hard to get this rook on a1 out. But White still has some advantages. He could take this pawn, right, and that way he could get this pawn closer to promotion. And also if he takes this pawn, Black cannot castle. Black will probably have to move his rook to g8, and then afterwards White will have a lot of attacking advantages. It's very interesting. So let's say White takes. So right now material is even, and then after that I don't know, White might want to play here. And so notice how Black's king is pretty exposed, and White could just throw some attacks at the Black king. And so if you don't play this position correctly as Black, you might lose. So that would be kind of bad. And then the fourth variation has two sub variations. So after knight f6, White could try to refute the Black knight's move with knight g5. What we said about in just before. And so this is very annoying. Defends e4, right? It defends the pawn on e4 with knight g5. And it attacks pawn on f7. And so White, he might be wasting time trying to throw black out with this very early punch because I mean it's pretty you could defend this pretty well as black. Um, so if black doesn't defend this well, then of course white's efforts are not going to be in vain. Um, so black, he could go to d5, pawn d5, blocking the white's bishop, the white bishop's attack on f7. Um, and and then afterwards, white could play e takes d5, taking this pawn, and then black could play knight a5, attacking the bishop. And so basically, you just gave up a pawn as black. Oh no, right? Not really, because now you could black. He's no longer in a lot of pressure. And then white, he could go to bishop b5 and check. Black go c6, blocking it. D takes c6, and then b takes c6. All right, and then bishop e2. I mean, because there's no other safe place for this bishop. You have to move it pretty far back. E2. If you move it to d3, I mean you can move it to d3, but e2, that's a move. And then h6 for black. And so this looks like a really weird position for black. I mean, one of his knights is on a5, right? I mean, it's on the a file. That's a pretty bad sign usually, but that really depends how you look at it. So white, he doesn't have a lot of development, right? While black, he has really easy development. However, white has an extra pawn, so it's really development versus white's extra pawn. So will black win or will white win? Will black win because of development? He gets to develop his pieces way better than white can, or will white win because he has an extra pawn? I mean, if white manages to catch up in development, then white might win because he has an extra pawn, which will help him. So white will probably try to bring his king to a safe place and then develop the rest of his army, while black will play to actively try to make use of the open files and diagonals on the board by using his bishops and his rooks and try to attack white before he can develop. So it's like a race basically. Okay, so this sub variation is so basically it's after knight g5 and then d5 and then e takes d5. Now so black just gave up a pawn. So what will black do? So black, he could do knight takes d5, right? And then knight takes f7. So this is a sacrifice, right? And then king will take on f7, and then queen f3 to check. And so notice how now the knight on d5 is in quite some danger. So king is kind of forced back to the center of the board. And so this is known as the fried liver attack. So basically you kind of sacrifice your knight by taking on f7, letting black take your knight back, and then forcing black into the center. And so notice how this is probably not a very comfortable position for for black. His king is in front of most of his army, not behind, so that's gonna be pretty bad. And like white, he could try to like break open the center even more by like maybe d4, or yeah, like d4 would be okay, or just develop his knight here to add even more pressure on on uh, knight d5. And so like here it's like really 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 bad already. Yeah, you could move down here. And so notice how like white, he's putting a lot of pressure on black, while black is just like sitting there hopelessly. And so like it's very not that comfortable. So I guess that'll be about it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot about the two-knight defense. And if you guys did, leave a like, subscribe, and click that notifications bell to see more chess videos.